Welcome to the Small Church Podcast, where faith, community, and ministry intersect in the unique context of smaller congregations. I'm your host, Tony Marr, and I'm thrilled to be joined by two men who are convinced they're a little bit more talented than I am.
That is right. I'm Robert Kell, one of those supposedly more talented guys, co-host and fellow small church leader. Together, we're here to explore the challenges, triumphs, and inspiring stories within the tight-knit communities that make up our smaller churches.
And I'm Bruce Montgomery, the one here to bring even more to the table than these two and offer a unique perspective to our conversation.
So whether you believe this talent hierarchy or not, you're in for a treat. If you're a pastor, a church member, or just curious about the world of leadership, you're in the right place.
Each episode, we dive into topics that matter to you, from innovative ministry ideas to navigating the unique dynamics of a smaller congregation.
So grab your cup of coffee, settle in, and let's journey together through the wonderful tapestry of small church life.
This is the Small Church Podcast.
What's up?
I was just staring at you, waiting for someone to say something.
Hey, man, we're so glad to be with you guys. We're a duo again instead of a trio today. But in that, there's some encouraging news, but still some steps to go with Bruce. And so,
yeah. I know that a lot of you have been thinking and praying about Bruce. We told everyone the other day that he had a stroke while on vacation with his family in Florida. He is doing a lot better than what the initial prognosis, initial reports were saying. He has been moved down out of ICU into a regular room, still has a long, long road ahead of him. And so we're still praying and thinking about him every single day and hopeful that we'll get him back on the microphone sometime soon. But even if we don't hear from him for a while on our show, we're hopeful that he continues to have a healthy recovery, but it is going to be a long recovery, long road ahead of him, and some things that are going to be just a new way of life for him and for Carol moving forward. But we definitely want to thank all of our listeners for all of their thoughts and prayers on that, and much more positive outlook than what we thought we were facing this time last week.
Yeah, and I know, Tony, I mean, you guys have known each other for 30 years, and so this is a much, deeper. I've known Bruce for a little less than a year, but the thing about Bruce is once you meet him, it's like you've known him forever because he tells the same Baylor story. No, I'm joking. But Bruce is a very genuine guy. He really, what he taught in communication, he lives out and he listens and he asks good questions and he's so thoughtful. And your heart just immediately after knowing him, you just feel like for a few minutes, you feel like you've known him forever. And yeah, so I know this has been hard on you, but any of us who have sat with Bruce for any time at all, this has not been an easy journey, and definitely praying for Carol, the kids, and of course Bruce and the doctors that are continuing to work and care for him in this moment. So
yeah, definitely.
So it's a big weekend for you, though. You guys graduated a couple of kids.
We did. We had two different graduations this weekend, high school graduations, and we survived both of those, the emotion that comes with those. And I was doing really good until they played that stupid slideshow. And really, the first song of the slideshow was fine. It's the music does everything. I was a communications major in undergrad and did several courses in radio and film production. And we did one class on film production that we watched scenes from major movies, but they had no audio track or no soundtrack behind them, just the dialogue. Yeah. And then they played the final cut with the soundtrack behind it, with the score behind it, and the music completely dictates the mood. And so they're showing this slideshow, and it's the typical slideshow that you're going to show at every graduation.
About 9 to 12 pictures per kid. And the first song was some fast, upbeat song. I'm like, all right, this is fun. Everyone's laughing. And the second song was just all right, just cut my heart out of my chest right now and stomp on it on the ground. Because it's like butterfly kisses on a kid's wedding day or something like that. It's just, it was really hard.
Speaking of butterfly kisses, that song is sung by Bob Carlyle.
Yes.
Bob Carlisle, when I was on staff at a church in Las Vegas, his studio for Christian Records, which at that time was a major label, was in our offices. He had
cool.
the most state-of-the-art studio on the West Coast at that time. And this is a little-known fact about your friend here, that one day he's recording and he comes over into the church offices. He says, "Tony, I need background singers. Come over right now." Like, okay. So me and a couple of other guys on staff go over and we walk into the studio and we start singing background for songs. And to this very day, I am featured in the background on a couple of songs on the Left Behind 2 soundtrack because he was the producer for several songs of the Left Behind 2 soundtrack. And so
and your mom, and 7 other people have seen and heard this.
Oh, I haven't seen or heard it. I've never listened to it. He came over and brought us CDs. Mine's still in the shrink wrap somewhere, probably down in our library, that never even took it out. But yeah, Bob Carlisle, he then changed his label to Butterfly Music Group because all of the money he'd ever made came off of that one song.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that song has been played at more weddings I have sat at than anything I can possibly think of. So, yeah. So, it was a fun
You were
event.
the MC.
I was there. It was a really good day. I did get to MC and
did a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
You pulled out. I mean, you did like your best, like Saturday Night Live host gig that night. You pulled out all the stops.
Well, thank you for one. I think it's one of those things like you ever do something, you're like, hey, I don't mind doing this, but then you start to find out more about it and you're going, I don't want to do a lot of the stuff that's here, but once you're on stage, you're going to do it, and it's just there. You're going to own it. And so I was super happy, especially knowing Kenna as long as we've known her and you all. Kenna did shows at JCCT with Landon and some things like that. And then Camden and Colby played baseball together. And so we've just been around and you guys for a long time and love your kids and super thankful to be able to do that for them. Then I knew a couple of other kids. So it was like 25 kids in this homeschool graduation. And so I knew a couple. And that was fun. But I showed up and they're like, oh, hey, they're going to have these index cards. So I didn't know about, I knew a little bit about there's going to be something, but I had no clue what I was getting into here. And so you had already said like, hey, I want to play this song and I want to do this thing. And I'm like, that's fine, whatever.
I thought we were breaking all the rules.
You did. Like you would have had me do some act something out if you'd have known what was coming here in a second. Well, this one mom walks up, and I doubt they're listening to this podcast. And if you are, I absolutely loved doing this for you. So please don't. But I didn't really have any plans on singing. And inside of this show and inside of this graduation, and so I'm there on Friday at the rehearsal, and I had just driven in from Speak Conference down at Passion City Church with Louie and his team, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes. But I get there and they start handing me these index cards, and I'm going, okay. So I'm trying to line them up, get them by name. This one mom walks up, she's like, I have 2 kids graduating. I said, okay, that's awesome. And she's like, I'm going to need you to sing. And I said, okay. And I said, that's fine. And she's like, I don't know if you do this kind of stuff. And I said, I'm a little bit of a performer, stage person. Like, I'll be fine. And so she was like,
she didn't know that you were Jimmy Fallon's understudy.
Mary Poppins, Let's Go Fly a Kite. And I'm going, I love that movie. Love that play. I just love that with just so many good things. Dick Van Dyke, what a great accent. Dude is amazing. Love that song. And Dick Van Dyke didn't sing that, of course, but he's part of it. But that whole thing, I love that show. Well, then she's like, her other kid's like, okay, then I need you to rap. And I'm going, this is not going to be good. This is, I am a lot of things. A rapper is not one of them. And,
I think you have a new career.
And so I had to, I didn't have to, I guess, but I rapped this, Justa is some YouTube group, and they have a song called Must Have Snacks. and I had to rap about a paragraph of that she had written down, and so I listened.
So that was not an original?
No, it was not. Must have snacks, something about beef jerky and 7 days of the week or something like that. I don't know, but
it was very impressive. It really was, and my wife quickly pulled out her phone and started recording it. I haven't had a chance to get that audio footage, but the hope is that next week we will debut a small sample of your rapping on the Small Church podcast. And maybe after we play the actual footage from the event, maybe we can get you to do a live on-air demonstration.
I don't know about all that. I did. The only time I've really rapped that was kind of a serious thing is churches used to do these openers, and they would be really kind of fun openers that would connect to a series. And do not ask me what this series connected to, but or what this opener connected to. But we did a thing where, what if Taylor Swift, and this was a long time ago, so it wasn't near the controversy there is now around Taylor, but what
controversy, if Taylor?
I don't know, man. I just live in this world. I don't create it. But what if Taylor had influenced artists from a long ways back? Like, what if she'd influenced artists before her to write the songs and that kind of thing? And so I did. It's My Life, Bon Jovi's "It's My Life" to that rhythm with Taylor Swift's "Once Upon a Time," "Few Mistakes Ago." I can't remember the names of her songs. I'm terrible at that, even in worship songs and stuff. But I did that, and then the other one is I did the Love Story song to the tune, or to the tune of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And so that's my only other real dive. And if you are just super interested and want to do a lot of Googling and stuff, you can probably find that on the YouTube somewhere. But
there you go.
There's your fun for the week.
How would someone search for that on the YouTube?
You guys waste your time. You guys go do that stuff. But anyway, so hey, real quick, because I know we've got a lengthy topic today, and this may end up being 2 parts. We have no clue. Sometimes we get started on these things, and it goes faster than we think. But really interesting topic today. But I got a chance to go to Speak Conference with 6 other staff members from our network this past week. And
so first off, tell us what Speak Conference is.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of conferences out there.
There
I'm
are
not sure
a lot.
That's one that it's a newer one.
It is. Louis Giglio and Passion City Church for several years had done a conference called Lift, which is a full creative conference. Like, you show up, their worship teams are there, and I mean, the stage is going, and the breakouts are all about how do you be creative? How do you be creative? Louis is such a creative guy. 6 Step, 268 Records. I'm trying to think what they did with their record label and stuff. I think it's 268 Records, because they used to have the 268 Generation stuff, but they do all the the Passion recordings and the Passion conference, and everything's just so creative. Well, last year they stepped away from Lift and started Speak. And Speak is a conference that is geared to pastors, to teachers that are just wanting to teach the Bible. And literally I don't know what last year was. This year, we walked in and I was like, I'm so excited. Christian Stanfield, David Crowder, this is going to be amazing. Melody Chenoweth, all the people, Yonkers, they're all going to be there. Well, I walk in and I'm like, there's Cody Carnes, Carrie Job. This is going to be amazing. We were there for 2 days, and they did a 20-minute worship set the entire time. And it was Cody and Carrie got on stage with just them and somebody playing a piano, and Cody had a guitar, and they sang 4 songs. And it was awesome, and it was super, the right thing in the right moment. But Speak is a conference designed to help communicators and pastors and preachers to navigate, to understand, and to work through God's Word more effectively. And this year, it was Louis, David Platt, Dr. Crawford Loritz, J.P. Pokluda, Christine Kane, John Mark Comer. John Mark was audio or video. He doesn't travel anymore. But
is there any church leadership conference that Christine Kane does not speak at?
I don't know of any. But man, she was good. She was really, really good, and it's so inspiring and challenging. But the thing I just want to say is this, is I understand that those conferences are a lot of things. One, they're 2 days usually. It's a night or two in a hotel, depending upon where you live. The conferences themselves, for the cheapest seat to get in, if you get early bird rates, are probably $240, $250. So I understand this is sometimes you're looking at probably upwards meals and everything, $1,000 to get to these. We did not have to do that. We got an Airbnb that 7 of us piled into. We had a group rate with tickets. And so we had some stuff. And again, church, 3 campuses, we're fortunate to be able to do some things like this once a year is what we do usually. But they started a thing called Speak Lab that is an online a website online that you can log into, and for $200, like a one-time fee of $200, you can go in and have access to all of this year's conferences and all of last year's conferences. And what they said was, this is a one-time fee, and so as they do this moving forward, you will get the conferences that are coming. If it was $200 for just what I got this year, I mean, JP talked about how to communicate through culture, how to communicate to culture. They talked about how to communicate. Dr. Laritz communicated on how to preach and teach for the long haul, how to be a preacher for the long haul. And this guy's in his 70s, and he's done it for a long time. I'm just trying to think of what else there was, how to communicating with the Holy Spirit, how to put a sermon together. Ben Stewart literally was singing Conjunction Junction from back when we were all kids and things.
Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock, baby. It was so good. And I just, like, he walked through how to find verbs, how to put a sermon together, what he does, leaning and trusting the Holy Spirit as you're writing, how to write sermons that engage the nations. I'll give you one shot who that one was, David Platt. But it's just one of those deals of, it's a really good conference. It was really inspiring for me and just encouraging for me. And I told you this before we started the show. I don't think I heard one thing that was new, like as far as just sermon prep. But in the world being as busy as it is, especially for a lot of us who are bivocational or we're pastors in smaller churches that just feels like everything's on you, being able to spend 30, 45 minutes listening to somebody remind me of why I started doing this, reminding me of, hey, you're capable. God has given you the Holy Spirit. You're qualified. You're able. You can do these things, was just something that I needed to hear.
That's
and
great.
To move through. So it was great.
Yeah, I'm
so
glad
anyway.
that you got to be a part of that. I think that lends itself to a good transition into what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Because something while you were talking that hit me is that I did a lot of these different types of leadership conferences, did the National Youth Workers Convention by Youth Specialties for about 10 years in a row, which I said, even when I wasn't in youth ministry, I was still going to go to that because it was just so great.
It was great, yeah.
And then Catalyst, year after year, did the Catalyst Conference, did Leadership Summit in person and at satellite campuses probably 10, 15 times, did Leadership Summit every year. And these were things that we looked forward to.
Is that the Chick-fil-A, the Leadership Summit?
No, Leadership Summit was Willow Creek.
That's right.
Willow Creek Leadership Summit.
And then Chick-fil-A had their leadership cast.
The Leader Cast.
Yeah.
Leader Cast did that several times. Never did that one live. Did that one at a satellite
Satellite's
place.
the only place I ever did those as well.
But I was thinking that, you're talking about the Speak Conference and what it costs to go, and you add in hotels, and you add in travel, and you add in food, that for most of our listeners in smaller churches, they don't have the budget, the resources to do that. And you talked about the opportunity to get that digital package. That is something that we've struggled with at Higher Ministries, because in the first probably decade of Higher Ministries, we did a lot of conferences. We did a lot of one-day training conferences here locally, and we traveled with it some, and we would get good results from that. We would have 70, 80 people, come to each of those sessions, and a lot of them we offered for free. A lot of them we charged a small fee, $5, $10, just so
enough
they
to cover
had
lunch.
Yeah, and so that they'd have some sort of commitment to come, so we wouldn't plan for 100 and 20 would show up because people signed up and didn't show up. But we began to see over the years that the attendance in those started declining and declining and declining as more and more conferences went to doing their stuff online and putting things online. We did one every year for about 3-4 years that was done by, I think it was Leadership Network, that was called the Nines. I actually was a speaker, a presenter at that one year. I'm not sure if you ever did that one. And it was 2 full days that they had like 100 different speakers, and each one got 9 minutes. And so it was this great thing. It wasn't something you could go to. It was all online, and we'd get our whole staff in. We'd cancel all meetings and appointments, and we'd sit down, and actually hosted it at my house a couple of times for our staff, that we'd just come, we'd have all sorts of food, and we'd sit and watch. And I mean, it was great names, big name people. Like I said, I was a presenter at it one year.
I mean,
so
it doesn't get any bigger.
The biggest of names there. And it was all day, 9 minutes each. And then the next person would be up for 9 minutes, and the next person for 9 minutes, for 9 minutes, for 9 minutes, for 9 minutes, for 2 straight days. And it was really great. And it was free to do. And so while a lot of our small church listeners may not have the resources to go to Atlanta and spend 3 nights in a hotel and everything that comes with food and conference registration and all of that, there are so many opportunities out there to get great training, great encouragement, great motivation for minimal to no cost. And you're talking about the kind of training and resources that you guys receive from that for $200, you were able to not only access all of this year's sessions, but all of previous year's sessions as well. And that's something that I would think even for the smallest of churches with the most limited of resources, if that was something that you would have the opportunity to plan for, to talk with key leaders in your church, that is something that would be doable. And so I do think that there are great resources out there because of the digital age that we have moved into, which leads us into our topic of what we're talking about today, and that's digital discipleship.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just such a great opportunity. I just thought about this while you were talking. I ran across this newchurches.com does this actually preaching masterclass that a lot of David Platt, Crawford Lewis, John Piper, Matt Chandler do these sessions through, and it's 100% free. You just have to create an account. And so I emailed that to you, and you can drop it in the show notes because you have nothing else to do other than just drop all my random ideas and stuff into show notes. But this is such a big opportunity, and I think it creates a lot of questions as well. So one, we're talking a little bit about, I think we're kind of walking a unique line right here of digital training / discipleship. I will tell you, inside of COVID, and we've talked about this before, I don't know if we've talked on here, but in COVID, Judd Wilhite from Central Church, your church in Vegas, really was...
I'll be there in a week.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Judd really was our pastor for a season. I mean, we watched it religiously. We sat down, Melissa and I watched it every week. We sat, we listened, we took notes. Like, we were very invested because the world was shut down. And I wasn't on staff at a church at that point in time. We'd been leading a home church, and so we were still doing that. But the vast majority of people that were in that, if they were believers, like, it wasn't something they were active. Most of them weren't actively pursuing that.
Can I tell you a quick side note really quick, that something that was a huge pet peeve of mine when I was in full-time teaching every week that now I'm doing myself, that is driving myself crazy that I'm doing this, is that we leave a week from today, actually, 1 week from now, this evening, my family and I will be heading to the airport to get on planes and fly out to the West Coast, where we're going to spend a few days in my hometown of Las Vegas and then spend about a week in Southern California. And it's a graduation trip for our 2 girls that just graduated. And while we're in Las Vegas, I want to take them to Central. It's my home church where I grew up. a lot of I have one whole album of storytelling that's called Stories from the Back Pew, and it's all just about Central in Las Vegas, and I talk a lot about the Central Christian Church in Las Vegas, Nevada, and so my kids love a lot of those stories, and they've heard so many of the stories, so to go and see where so many of those took place. But I'm sitting there, we're going to do this Saturday night service because Sunday we will be getting up early and driving to L.A. and going to a day game at Dodger Stadium. So,
you can just go to church on Sunday. I mean, Dodgers aren't that big of a deal.
Kind of is church, right? Dodger Stadium for some people. And so we're going Saturday night, and I found myself sitting there saying, I've got to find if Judd's teaching, if Judd's going to be the one teaching. And I almost called the church and said, hey, is Judd going to be teaching on this date? Because it's going to be such a disappointment if he's not.
Yeah, and his situation too, man, you never know. It's really never a box of chocolates over there. It's been, and so, but Judd was teaching a lot, of course, in that season of life. People couldn't really travel. They couldn't go anywhere. And so I'm not, by the way, I'm not a monstrous proponent of I'm actually not a proponent at all of your main church coming through digital means. But in that season, the world was shut down, and Central had the production and stuff and the abilities.
Something that they'd already been doing for a long time. We've talked about that before, I think, on this show.
Yeah, and so that was a big blessing. And there's several others. I mean, Erwin McManus in that season was somebody we listened to a lot. We listened to Louie and Andy and Craig and a lot of different people because we were at home. And so we probably were listening to a church service a day. For the most part, because I mean, what else are you going to do? Watch Netflix for that hour? And so we knew that certain churches would load their service with worship on certain days, and then it would disappear. So we would always watch Louie early in the week because their worship goes away and it's just the sermon after Tuesday. But anyway, so I think there's a fine line of preaching / discipleship. Like when or discipleship / teaching, what we're talking about with some of this masterclass type things and listening to people to grow and hone your craft as a leader. And then I think there's a different part of us as leaders creating digital discipleship opportunities to engage the people in our community and ultimately around the world, depending upon how we release and launch these things. And so I think those are two different parts of that. And I'm interested to see where we land on some of these.
Yeah, and we've touched a little bit on this in the past, but we've never really devoted a full conversation to this idea of digital discipleship and why it's important in today's culture. I think that, as you were saying, through the COVID years, everyone dabbled in it a little bit. And I'll be honest, I think that we've come back from that a little bit more than I thought we would. I really thought that coming out of COVID, that it was going to take much longer. I really thought that the world was going to look completely different when we emerged from COVID than it did before we went into COVID. And in some ways it does, but not to the extremes that I thought that it would. And a lot of that was in the church that I've talked to church leaders that some are still having a hard time getting people to come back to physical church because for a year and a half, we told them it's okay for you to sit at home in your pajamas and be a part of community through your screen. And so then we've spent generations telling them, no, you have to be a part of community. It's not enough just to listen to podcasts at home or watch services at home or do your own home study. You need to come be a part of community. But then COVID hit and we said, no, now it's perfectly safe and perfectly well. Great discipleship can happen from home. And then COVID ended and a lot of churches said, oh, now you've got to come back. But there was still that component where people, because of COVID, were forced to learn. The number of times that an older generation who had no clue how to navigate their computer and Zoom and YouTube and Vimeo and things like that were then forced, if they wanted to participate in the things that were important to them, they had to learn these new skills and these new techniques. My mom was one of them that I had to go over and teach her how to get her church's services on her TV so that she could be a part of that every week. And
it was definitely interesting to see the wide range of, how do I want to say, technical excellence from the different, I mean, some of these were literally a pastor with his cell phone propped up against the wall, just sitting there with his whole face filling the whole screen, talking for an hour, doing his sermon.
Yeah.
And then some of them are, Central,
Full productions.
North Point, all this stuff,
Yeah.
10 cameras running this whole thing. And
And
doing
we've
it.
talked before, Robert, about how back in 2012, I think it was, I think you maybe even looked up the date, 2012, I was talking to a friend of mine who was on staff at Central and in Las Vegas, and just talking about how things were. I had just planted a church that was doing really well, and we were talking. He says, "Oh yeah, we've got like, I don't remember exactly what the number was.
162 million people a week attending
it was
our
something
church.
ridiculous." And I said, "No, you don't."
It was literally like 20 or 30,000, but
like 50,000.
50,000.
I think it was like 50,000.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
And I said, "No, you don't." He said, "Yeah, we launched this online campus, and we've got people." And I said, "Oh, come on. Okay, you've no, really, it's a complete campus for people online that we've." And for the longest time, I thought, You're cheating numbers. It's not real church. And then COVID happened almost a decade later, 8 years later, and they were so far ahead of the curve that now it's just normal. Now it's mainstay. And it's something that if your church does not have some sort of digital presence, you're really left behind. Even some of the smallest churches that I get the opportunity to work with, they're live streaming their services. We've got one church that we work with that doesn't have, they proudly do not have TV screens or video projectors or anything in their sanctuary, but they have a camera back at their soundboard that live streams their service on Facebook. And so this new realm of the digital age has not only made its way into the church world, but it's really flooded the church world to where there are now so many resources and opportunities for your church to have an impact beyond just Sunday morning, Sunday night, or Wednesday night because of the digital campus, the digital space, the digital canvas that is available to them.
And so the thing that as we go that I want to talk about, and I think this is going to be something that drops into each space. So here would be my question, and let's see where we land on this, if we agree or disagree and things like that. And then we'll talk about this throughout the episode. So do you think the goal of online discipleship, and we'll just call it that, digital discipleship, should be to move people to personal discipleship? Or do you think, if they're getting it and they're digital, it's cool? Or should the goal be to move them into personal human community and navigate that space that way?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So I would say yes to both, because I think that I think there are two different discussions, two different topics, and two different categories here. I think that if you've got people that by digital discipleship, we're saying your only means of consuming church is through sitting in live streaming services or watching pre-recorded services on your computer or on your television or on your phone at your leisure, at your convenience, at your time that fits into your schedule, then yes, we eventually want to get you into corporate worship in a physical space, okay? I think that yes to that. But I also think what we're going to discuss a lot here is that because of the digital age that we're in now, that there's another component that churches really, we just said most churches are live streaming their service, but digital discipleship goes so far beyond that there are so many things that you can do in the digital world that are actual discipleship, that are not requiring people to go down to Lifeway bookstore or hop on Amazon and spend money to buy a book that then they're sitting down doing. There are things that make a discipleship process beyond just Sunday morning. So things that people would normally have to come out on Tuesday night or Saturday morning or a Thursday morning women's Bible study to do in person, that really limited the number of people who could do that. The number of times that, I can remember back when my kids were young, the thing that was sweeping the nation was MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers. And every large church had a MOPS program. Well, if you were a mother of preschoolers who had to work, you couldn't participate in mobs because it took place on Thursdays at 10 a.m. And so you couldn't be a part of that. Now, because of the digital world that we live in, these resources, these discipleship materials and discipleship programs are available on your pace at your time for anywhere that you want to do it. And so those type of things, I think, are great for families and individuals to do at their own pace, at their own leisure, at their own time, in their own way, because these resources are there for them to do. And so I think it's really two different things. If it's your sole means of worship, then yes, I would say we still want to get you into a place where you're having physical contact with people. But if it's part of your discipleship process, then I think that it's a great tool and a great resource that every church should be utilizing.
Which means those people are already connected into a church family that they're able to kind of journey through and stuff. So I'm with you on that 100%. And so I think the question then, and I guess the thought would be, as we are all thinking about this, because again, I do this, I work through these things every week like you all. Like I just literally got a text message from our other campus pastors as I was driving over here, and I was sitting at a traffic light and it popped up, and I clicked on it, and it was some video. And so I just clicked it and was listening to it in my earpod, but I wasn't watching the guy. I don't know if I can tell you what he looks like, but we're driving down the road and I'm listening to this audio, and it was about tithing and generosity and things. And it was this interesting conversation, and it was a great discipleship and growth conversation through some text messages and different things, as you kind of start to have this dialogue of, okay, what does this look like? How do we do this? Because the thing that I know for me is that I can take, and because I think about these things all the time, when it comes to stuff like digital discipleship, or when it comes to generosity, or when it comes to A, B, C, or D, I can take and I can move there quickly because I think about this all the time, and I try and keep my heart pretty open and my hands not gripping tight to things so that I can move towards the Father. We have to find ways that we can move and navigate and journey with people in this space. And so what does the process, I think the thing to think about is, what does the process look like as you think about, and I think about each of these things that we're going to talk about today? How do you engage people where they are, for the most part, with the goal of getting them into a personal community if they aren't already in that?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So just a thought.
Yeah. Robert, how are you guys utilizing digital discipleship within your church now?
I am I am the world's worst at this, and that's terrible, being a creative guy and stuff.
Literally, you are?
I think I am. Literally, I think I am the worst. I am the worst in the world.
I'm on my third Werther's original, by the way.
Guys, what you do not know is Tony became 100 over the last week and has now put Werther's Originals candy that my grandparents used to carry in their pockets and hand out to little kids at church.
Well, here, little insight, because we don't video stream. We talk a lot. And it's helpful. We have drinks here.
I bring tea every week, yeah.
And typically I just take a handful of Lifesavers mints and just toss them out on the table. And I told my wife, I said, I want to get a nice little candy dish. And so we looked all over, and we went to Ross and TJ Maxx and Marshall's, and we found this great little candy dish.
It is a cool dish.
Well, no, not this one.
Oh.
It was $30. And then they had this thing that you can't see it right now, but it's one of those that it came with a big wooden mallet thing that you're supposed to like grind pepper
meal or
like
something.
That.
Yeah.
And it was $7.99. So I said, this would work. And my wife said, it's not really a candy dish. She said, yeah, but you got this thing. I said, I'll just toss the little mallet crusher thing, and we'll just use this as a candy dish. And so we're in the checkout line, and they have a bag of Werther's Original. And I said, my grandfather had an office that we would go into, and he had a little candy dish that had Werther's Original and those little strawberry ones, that have the little jelly on the inside.
Those were so good.
And I, for nostalgia's sake, I grabbed the bag of Werther's Original, tossed it in the checkout, and so now my dish is full of the Lifesavers mints that are normally scattered across the desk, and Werther's Original candies. And man, those things are good.
We need to do an episode on nostalgia at some point. I don't know if that's interesting or not, but we just need to have a conversation around nostalgia. I've been in like 3 or 4 places in the last 7 days, 8 days that I either grew up or lived a long part of my life in. And I've just got a lot of nostalgia for a lot of things right now. So I can 100% respect Werther's and strawberry, even though we don't have any strawberry candies.
I will get the strawberry candies for next week. I will find them somewhere. I don't know where you buy those, but I will find them somewhere.
My favorite mint is the Taco Bell ones where it's the cinnamon and peppermint together. Those things are good. Those are really, really good. But
the Taco Bell ones?
Yeah, they have Taco Bell. They have mints at Taco Bell at the counter, and they're in little wrappers, and they're like the little individual peppermints that
what
you can get.
What Taco Bell do you go to?
All of them.
I've never seen a mint at Taco Bell.
Well, come over here to you need to do more Taco Bell on the East Coast and not just your bougie Taco Bells over in Vegas.
Oh, no, that's Del Taco.
Yeah, you need a good Taco Bell. So anyway.
I have frequented the Taco Bell.
They used to all the time, man. I haven't been in a long time to Taco Bell, but they had these mints. It was great. So,
like the white and red ones?
Yeah, just like cinnamon, but it's like peppermints, like normal peppermints, but in the middle of the peppermint, it's cinnamon. And so it's a cinnamon and a peppermint together, and it's amazing. I love it so much.
You have lunch plans today?
We got to go find the Taco Bell.
We got to go find
mints.
Taco Bell.
So I will tell you this. The only thing that our church really does, and this is a little bit
hold on, because I'm going to get right back to that. But if you're listening, please send us a message if you have any clue what Robert is talking about, Taco Bell mints, because I think you're on your own on this. All right.
So
Proceed.
the only thing so all the campuses do a little bit differently, and I will admittedly say, and I've said this before, I have to do better. And it's something that is deep in my heart, and it's on my list, and I'm trying to move it higher to the top. At my campus, we live stream, and that is literally about the only thing. It is very minimal social media engagement. I'm just not good at it. I don't like it. I personally don't like social media. The only thing I like seeing is what my friends do that's cool. And I like supporting my friends, and I love seeing some things, and I like the few discipleship things we're talking about that I can get. So I can dive in and I can see my favorite communicators. I can follow conferences, and I can see stuff and learn things and get things. One of our campuses does a good job of just weekly putting out some posts. Another campus does a really good job of they have all their sermons are live streamed on Facebook. Their sermons end up on a podcast. I think they end up in a podcast. I know they end up online to where you can view them in an audio format. They take and break down clips and put things in throughout the week and show stuff. And they use Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. They reach a very unique crowd, and a lot of them use TikTok. And so he does that and does a great job with it. And so that's about the extent I'm looking through. We do a monthly meeting on Google Meet. That's our all staff, because we have a lot of bivocational staff and we can't all be in the same space.
What about church-wide? Do you guys do anything with small group ministry or anything like that utilizes digital space? I know a lot of churches, I don't know how many do this anymore. I know I can think of a few, but a lot of churches give every regular attender member of their church a membership to Right Now Media, and then a lot of their stuff is done through Right Now Media.
So yes, so we do. We have Right Now Media, and anybody who comes to church, I can get access to that.
Like I've been to your church many times.
We don't really talk about it.
Never heard anything said about that.
No, it's more of like we just do it through small groups, and like if people are in there, I guess I just don't think about the fact of that. I don't think that any of the other. I could be wrong, but I'm at their churches some, and I see their screens. I don't think anybody that I'm aware of has Right Now Media up. I know there's some churches that do that very religiously, and they really promote that and some things.
Bruce's church.
Yes,
drives
actively.
A lot through Right Now Media.
Now, we don't do, the only thing I've ever seen in Right Now Media, and this is funny, is, I think this is Right Now Media. Like, our worship pastor at one of our campuses did a training, like a 4-part training on how to use the keyboard and the new system that they had set up. And that was loaded into Right Now Media because you can have your own videos in there. And that was the worship team. Anybody on the worship team had access to that, and you could go in and watch those videos. That's the only thing I think we've ever done personalized in there. Things have gotten easier. Several years ago, I was trying to use YouVersion and stuff, and it was just really clunky. Trying to get sermon notes and things in. I haven't gone back to that
I think a lot
recently.
Of that has really improved.
Yes. And so anyway, I mean,
COVID forced a lot of that to improve.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. We use Planning Center, Church Center.
Yeah.
We have a lot of,
but do you use the communication materials in that, or resources in that, the programs that they have for that, for church-wide communication?
Some. And then we started using Glue, which links to links to Planning Center, and we can send text messages, because I love the fact that Planning Center has text messages, but you have to have everybody's number, you have to know what carrier they're with, and all these things. And I understand that these systems are complicated, but somehow Glue has moved around that, and so every campus has their own Glue number, and we send out and we can, when I send a text, it just goes to our people in Irwin.
We were talking before we hit record about some things that you're very active in the high school baseball scene. I coach high school basketball. We were talking about this program called Team Reach that we use, that is communication within the team and the program. I can remember back around 2011, there was a startup that came out called The Table. That it was a app, and they also had a desktop version, but we got in, the church that I was pastoring at the time got in on like the beta of that. And basically it was supposed to be a program that was really like a database management system / Facebook for churches, but all confined within this one little space. And the user interface was great. The idea behind it was amazing. And our church really adopted it. And we told everyone at the beginning, hey, download the Table app right now. Here's our login for our church on the Table. And all communication happens on the Table on this app. This is 2011, 2012. And so apps and smartphones and all of that were just starting to really become predominant and a mainstay in our culture. And in preparation for this episode, I went back to look to see if the Table is still around, and it's not. They didn't make it. But there are other programs, options like that available for churches to take all of your digital communication packaged in one nice, neat little Facebook-esque program that really can streamline some things for you.
Yeah, and I think that's always hard when when you're coming up against Facebook, Instagram, which I know are the same ownership and stuff now, but X/Twitter, and just TikTok, and you keep going on and on and on. The billions of dollars that are invested into those and things, it's really hard for a startup to come in and really make it, because even though I think a lot of those organizations may not like it, Parler, wasn't that one that tried to make it as a more conservative?
I think it's still going.
It's still, I think, I don't know, but I do know this, that I don't think you can download unless they've changed it. I didn't know what Parler was going to be. It was one of those things I signed up for really quickly and never used. Because I saw a bunch of people signing up for it, and I was like, it's a new social media. I'll see what it's about. And I know that Apple actually stopped the downloading of that app. You had to do it by the browser because you could not access the app through Apple. They were like, we're not going to allow that type of app on our space. And so I think that it's just very, very hard to kind of get in and get connected, because Facebook and everybody has created all the same opportunities that the vast majority. And even though they may not love it, they may not love a Christian view, they may not love those things, they would rather have all of us signed up using their things and stuff. And then they find, I don't know, I think they find ways to limit how far our reach goes and stuff. But those are all just guesses. But I think you can use a lot of the current social media and opportunities out there, and it's to do what we're talking about. And it's so hard for a new thing to come in, because me and you and everybody listening and all of our friends and their friends and their friends have to all buy into this and stick with it for a year or 2 or 3 to let it get enough traction to actually make it.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part with some of these.
But how do you see that digital discipleship has helped to reach people who may not otherwise get involved in church world?
So the thing that we have seen, and I can't tell you how many people have shown up at our church and they're like, yeah, we were moving to the area, we were looking through, we've probably watched 10 of your sermons online. And so people get into that space and that rhythm, and it allows them to connect. And in that, most of the time, people are coming because our online service is nothing special. It's one camera pointed at us speaking, and it is what it is. It widens out for the band, it zooms in for the speaker, and that's about the extent of what this is. I think that we have just seen it be a connection point to us, to people out there who are spiritually interested, who are looking for a church home, who are trying to figure things out, who maybe have some questions. So the thing that I know is, if I did a better job, I think there's more opportunities to reach, connect, and engage people through not just our sermon, not just breaking down clips. But I saw a church the other day post, life can be hard. You want to get it right. We can help. And I think those types of things is like, and they're posting that online, and it's connected to a short video or to an idea or to their next sermon series. And it's just this rhythm, this statement that they say. And I thought, what a beautiful sentiment, because life is messy. I mean, you and I both have kids, and they're all in the teen up age and things. And I mean, and it can just get messy, and it can get intentionally messy. It can get accidentally messy, metaphorically messy. I mean, it is just messy sometimes. But the thing you and I both talk about, we've never woken up and gone, man, I want to get life wrong today. I really want to mess up my kid's life. I want to mess up my life. I believe the church, ultimately the capital C, us as individuals walking where we live, work, and play, can impact people. But I believe the little C building can make a difference in the life of its community if it's doing that. So that's the things that I'm seeing for us. But that's also some things that I'm seeing other people doing that I think is engaging and drawing some people to their online space and digital space. There's also a lot. I mean, there's churches out there right now. Like everybody else probably listening to this, I look at side hustles and things, and there are literally churches that are hiring staff members that the only thing you do is teach, preach online messages.
Yeah.
And it's just an entire digital campus. I mean, they have no in-person thing. I don't know if they have any goal to get people together. It is just all digital. And so there's some churches that are really all in, sold out on this. And I think it's a good thing that they're out there. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's an all and. I do think people need flesh on flesh community. But
Potter's House of Denver sold their building for $12 million to go completely online.
Really? I have so many questions. So many questions. How did that affect student ministry? How did that affect family ministry, children's ministry? How did that affect college age 20-somethings that are navigating through? How do you serve your singles, young adults, singles, new families, or young married with kids and things like that? I just have so many questions about how are they, not in a negative way. I just have so many really deep, thoughtful questions about that, just going, man, just tell me more.
Yeah, I think their answer would be it's all done digitally. and that they're doing online community groups, they're doing online Bible studies, they're doing online student ministries events. And in conversations that I've had and articles that I've read on this, and I'm not saying that I'm a proponent of this because I'm not, and I'm not even saying that I agree with this. I'm just saying this would be the response that I've read to a lot of these questions is that the vast majority of our social interaction takes place on screens now anyways. That especially within our younger generation, that most of their conversations are happening through text message. Most of their interaction is taking place through FaceTime. Most of the information that they are digesting is coming through TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. And so the church is just moving into that space that they're already at. Let's be present in the space that they're already present in. Let's go to where they are, which really is kind of following the example of Jesus of don't expect them to come to you. Let's go to where they are. And if that's where they are is the digital space, then let's go be there where they're at. Again, not necessarily what I believe, but just some of the things that I've read on why a lot of churches are going this direction.
We've got one dude who's a part of our church, and he plays video games. And he several years ago started having conversation with people while he played video games. And so this guy's in his 20s. I mean, but like he was actually at the Speak conference with us. And I mean, he is an unbelievable guy, great disciple maker, just great dude. But he started having Bible studies while he played. So people would come in and watch him play. He's live streaming his playing, and he would have these Bible studies and spiritual conversations and things with people in that space. My boys will drop in and watch him play and listen and hang out and have conversations with him and stuff. And he'll be like, I saw Brody or I saw Colby in. And I'm like, yeah, they told me they came in, dropped into your Twitch feed and saw all of this stuff. And so,
but that's another thing right there. We had graduation parties at our house this weekend, and I quit playing video games, in all honesty, besides solitaire on my phone when I'm waiting at the doctor's office, or Monopoly Go. I play a lot of Monopoly Go on my phone. But I stopped playing.
I play Clash Royale. That's what I play right now.
I stopped playing Xbox and PlayStation in the late 90s. And we have one because our teenage boys got into it a couple years ago. They don't really play much anymore. They did Fortnite for a while several years ago, and so we still have it up in our loft area. And we had this graduation party, and bunch of the kids were upstairs in the loft playing video games, and they came down wanting to know how to connect it. That they don't play. You don't play anymore just to sit and play the game to beat the game. I don't know that there is anymore these games that you play to beat the level. You know, when I was a kid, we'd spend hours trying to beat level 17 of Legend of Zelda, you know, and then when you beat the game, now you're beating the other person that you're playing with somewhere. It could be on the other side of the planet that you're playing with. And they were so disappointed, these kids, because the PlayStation wasn't connected to the internet to be able to play the games out there. They didn't understand the concept of taking the disc, putting it in, and selecting start campaign. You know, it was not the way that they played, that they digest this information anymore. And so I think that's the whole thing, that I wonder if we're on the cusp, if we're at the beginning, and maybe we're not even at the beginning. Maybe I'm just old. Maybe we're a couple steps into this, of every big revolution that's taken place in the church over the years of saying this is not the way that it should be. This is not the way that it's supposed to be. And 10 years from now, 15 years from now, we're going to look back and say, either you've gotten on board with all of this digital discipleship, or your church is left behind, like so many of the churches that we see that are barely keeping their doors open now.
Yeah, so two things. One, there are still campaign-based games, and that's actually what this guy plays. He plays online, and he plays through campaigns, and people come in and watch him play games. So there are people who do multiplayer that they watch that as well. I think most of his stuff is playing through games and campaigns and things like that and doing that. Two, I think you're 100% right, which is why I'm so frustrated and bothered with myself that I've let this linger and I haven't kind of attacked this better. I don't know what it looks like for me, because I really do, like, there are times we make network-wide decisions that everyone has to do. But for the most part, I'm pretty autonomous when it comes to these types of things. I don't know what it looks like for me to start an online discipleship. I don't know what it's the digital discipleship and working through those spaces and a daily or weekly Bible study, unpacking a verse, walking through some things. Melissa and I have taken a lot of walks over the last 4 years and had these types of conversations of what does this look like? What do we do? How do we lean into this? And there's some moments, if I can just be really transparent, I feel inadequate to do that. I think that I'm really good sitting in a space with you and working through some things. I feel like when I just sit there and talk by myself into a microphone and post it on internet, I don't know. I feel pretty inadequate sometimes to do those things. So I'm trying to figure some of that out. But I think you're 100% right. I think we're already in that phase. I think we need to engage it as small churches, because the thing that we have going for us, you may be listening and you may be a new church and you're sitting in a town of 1 million people. And that's awesome that you're doing that and you're reaching and making investment into that space. But I would assume the vast majority of us in smaller churches are in smaller towns. And, I'm in a town of 6,000 people. The county is 17.5. And so, like, what we do online not just could, but does make a difference in our community, because I'm probably a little unique in how I approach some things. Not better. I'm just different. And I grew up very independent Baptist and preachers, preached, and I don't speak that way. And that's fine if somebody does. And I know people are going, oh, he's making fun. I'm not at all. I'm just like, that's just not my style. It's not Tony's style. Like, I don't think we preach that way. You may say, Robert, I listen to you every week and that's all you do. And so I'm in those spaces where I know that in a town where a lot of preachers like really are preaching in a little bit more of a traditional independent Southern Baptist type of way, I get a chance to be a unique voice that maybe stands out. And I think that's the thing we have to remember, is that people are looking. Like, if what we believe, if the Bible is true and we believe it is, like, what it says is that people are searching for their significance. They're searching for hope. They're searching for these things. And we get a chance to do that through this digital format. I think I honestly, and again, I'm speaking to myself, you can address this with you. I'm letting my congregation, my community, and ultimately my world, if you want to go Judea, Samaria, and uttermost parts, I think I'm letting them down. And I think I'm missing what God's called me to in that space.
Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Small Church Podcast. You'll definitely want to tune in next week for part 2 of this conversation on digital discipleship. We want to thank you for tuning in. Be sure to take time to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to your favorite podcasts. Be sure to like our show and share it with a friend. The more that you share it, the more people will listen and the more impact we can have. We also want to invite you to be a part of this community by interacting with us on social media. On Facebook, you can find us Higher Ministries on Facebook, or visit higherministries.com. We want to thank you again. Next week, we will continue this discussion as we look at some of the unique and specific platforms, resources, and tools that you can use to better do digital discipleship within your small church context. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week as we continue the conversation.